Hello and welcome everyone. My name is Joshua Brown and today we're going to be working on building a resume. Now for our purposes today, this is generally going to be an entry-level type of resume. And by entry-level, I don't mean an entry-level position, that you yourself may be entry-level to that particular field. So we're looking to maybe someone going through a change, someone new to the workforce, but generally once we get this basic structure down, we're going to be able to use this and further our goals and further where we want to get. And ultimately the things that are going to change the most are those descriptions and the actual content. Today we're pretty much going to be going over just from a formatting perspective, getting the look down, some of the technical aspects, using a word processing program for something like building a resume. So let's go ahead and get started. All right. So the first bit of information here, generally at the top, we have our name and contact information. And what I like to do, if we look up here, I got Calibri. So, generally for a font, we want to look at something, especially that you can tell the difference between bold, italics, and the regular typeface. And that's because I like to use those things to kind of have the reader's eyes flow throughout the page and let them know where the key information is. So we want to be able to have that distinguish. If you just have one long piece of information, it's all the same, it makes it very difficult to read. And again, we want to think about getting this person who's going to make this decision that could alter both of our lives, getting them to read that next line. How can I get them to the next line? Okay, so it all starts at the top, right? Top to bottom, left to right. All right. So because of that purpose and how I want to get people's attention, all right, I've already gone here size 24 font. So generally, standard papers and things like that, 12 font. I, I'm going to be able to play around with how much space this is going to take over the entire page here. We may need to make it smaller, may need to kind of move the margins around a little bit, again, depending on how much I'm going to be able to put into the rest of the resume. But my hope here is, and this may be self-defeating advice if everyone does it, but to have my name in big bold letters there. It can't be mistaken for anything else. It can't be mistaken for what my objective is, what my professional summary is, skills, any of that stuff. It's my name, it's shouting out there. In that case, I call a week later following up on that particular job. Maybe they remember, oh yeah, I've seen that name before, I've heard that, something like that. Even if they haven't read the resume, it was on their desk, something like that, they saw my name and, there it was in just big black lettering. You got to hold out hope for some of those things, and every little bit counts. So for me, that's where I'm starting. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and move on to the next line here, and I'm going to make sure I don't have any lines after my paragraph in the paragraph spacing here. All right. And then I'm going to break this down back to 12. And again, as it's flowing here, we're going to be able to make the appropriate changes. So we don't want to freak out if anything doesn't look just there yet. We're going to be able to refine it. Okay, so the next bit of information is our contact information. So I'm going to go ahead and just stick with city and state, and I'm going to have state in all capitals, remind me to put the two-letter abbreviation there. And I'm not going to put a street address or a numbered address. And I know a lot of people use that still. With the amount of spreading of the resumes online, digital information, I'm not under any pretense that it can't be obtained, but I would like to contribute less to that that problem, if you will. So we're going to leave it like that. And again, we're going to kind of mess around with how we separate these. But the next bit of information I'm going to have here is my phone number. Okay. And then my email address. Okay, again, this is, I know it all kind of runs together here. We're going to be able to make some executive decisions on that a little bit later. Really, what you're all probably wondering about is what's going to come next, right? The objective, professional summary. I got to tell you, resumes are conjecture and opinions a lot of times, but in my experience, I'm done with the objection or with the objective. I'm done with it. It's tired. It's old. They all sound alike. They all merge together. Can't stand it. Professional summary. I think if you have a lot of experience and you're a good writer that can come up with something that doesn't sound stagnant or that it was came up with a committee in a business meeting, go for it. Absolutely. Please do. Please freshen up that area of the resume. But again, we're talking about entry level. We're trying to get their attention, trying to make a decision, trying to get us to that interview. Right? That's all we're trying to do with this resume. Get to the interview. We can talk and we can work on those interview questions. Let's get to that point. Okay. So what then are we going to have instead of professional summary or an objective? tell you what, I'm going to go right into it. I'm going into the skills. Okay. Now, we have the 12-point font, and I'm going to bump this up. And again, these things can change depending on the overall layout of the resume. I'm going to go ahead and bump that up to a 14, and I'm going to bold it. Okay. Now, overall, we should be looking at the resume as a work of art. And I know it sounds corny, but if you were to take out the actual words and just put bars there of black against that white, we have to look at things like the balance of it, white space, things like that. So it really is, it comes down to a molding of how good of a writer are you and how much do you have an eye for overall layout and design. Because I think that's important. Someone has to want to either continue reading if they open it up in an email, or continue reading if they have it in their hand. If it's not pleasing to the eye initially, it doesn't matter what's on that page. So that's, again, we have to think of all these little objections that we have to overcome as we're putting this resume together. Okay, too much for skills. Now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put this at justify here. I want this over to the left, and you kind of see the overall design and thinking. The cool thing about this resume that we're going to be working about on today is that later on we're going to be able to change where things are in relation to others and kind of create a whole different type of resume. So, you know, if you feel like something's getting stagnant, you want to try something else, it doesn't take too much work to kind of mix things around. And you'll see that as we go along. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and put the skills here. And you know what? For now, I'm going to underline it as well. I want this really to stick out to the employer. You know, I may even change it to something more than just skills because I want it almost to extend more into the page because I want them to understand, right, we're going for this particular job. We've, you know, and later on we'll talk about what are we going to actually fill these skills with, all right, because that's just as important as the layout. But understanding as they're reading through, okay, you have their name, have the contact information, I know how to get a hold of this person. What can they do for me? What can they offer me? Okay, so generally this skills type of section, and like I said, I'll go into this more in subsequent videos, but this skills section is going to have basically two types of skills. It's going to have a soft or your personal skills, things like customer service abilities, your time management, you know, how well do you work under stress, all that stuff that you take with you from job to job. Doesn't matter what job you have, you got to have great personal skills, HR skills, whatever you want to call it. And then you have the technical skills. So if you went to, say, a trade school, if you've gone to a university, whatever it may be, that's your technical skills. Those are the things that you learn to do for that specific type of job. Okay, so there has to be somewhat of a mixture. Obviously, with the technical skills, you can get a lot more specific. Skills, just saying customer service, right? What does that mean? We want to try and avoid just putting words like customer service. It can mean a million different things to a million different people. Having said that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put some filler information in here. And again, you'll be able to see what we're talking about in terms of the layout. All right, so underneath, I'm going to go back to the 12-point font. Okay, this is important because, again, we're setting a priority as they're going down to the page. All right, we want that skills to be where they stop their eye, right, read through it, boom, get to the next one, boom, boom. Going to be easy to digest for them. If they get the information in maybe 10 seconds, you know, hopefully even less, right, the pertinent information. Okay, so we're just going to start listing out some skills. Again, for the purposes of this, I'm just going to put, I want to make sure that that's not bolded or italicized, or underlined, excuse me. And I'm just going to make it so they stick out a little bit more here. Okay, whoops. Getting a little silly with the lettering, okay. Going to speed this process along here. And the reason I'm going to add more than a few is because, you know, this is an area where, because you don't have the objective, you're going to have a little bit more space to really expand on these skills, especially, like I mentioned, the technical skills. And so you'll see how this is all going to kind of play together and how I believe it really helps with the overall formatting. Okay, so let's say, dang, you guys are so talented, you just got so many dang skills. All right. Now again, you may have to tweak these. You may have to take some out if you want to get really descriptive under those jobs. You know, it's up to you. Whatever you think is going to be more important. Okay, so for our purposes, I think that's going to be all right. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and grab up here some bullet points. Okay. Let's try to make it kind of boxy. So we'll make it like that. Okay, so we don't want to just leave them all there, right? It starts to throw off our balance, like all that stuff I talked about. Want to go up here to page layout. Okay, we want to find columns. If you have a different version of Word, it's still going to be under some sort of layout heading. So we're going to go to columns, and really we want to stretch this across the whole page because I think it really helps with, again, setting a kind of an eyesight, an eye line, if you will. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and go 3 across. Okay, so now when you see, if I back up Microsoft Word so we can kind of see more of the whole page, okay, take off that, it really starts to set like a bar right across the center there. There might be a little bit too much white space in between the lines for what I prefer, but again, they're not always going to be all the same scale. It's going to be different, so it's going to look a little bit more varied and more natural, if you will. All right, so let me go ahead and pull this back up so we can get a better view here. All right. Okay. Now the next section that we're going to go into, again, you can switch these things around pretty much to taste, if you will, but it might depend on what type of situation you're in. So let's say that you're just coming out of school, don't have a lot of work experience. Let's say you don't have any work experience. Then the education's probably going to go next. If you're out of school for a while, you have some years of experience, especially paid experience, obviously not just a volunteer or an externship, you know, that employment is probably going to go next, especially if that employment particularly pertains to the type of work that you're going to be looking for. Now, that's obviously very important. What skill sets can you match to this employer that you're applying for? Okay, so for our purposes here, I'm going to have our employment history next. Okay. All right. So again, I want to make sure everything matches up with the prior. And what I mean by that is this skills section here, the title is bold, underline, and size 14 font. So this title is also going to be bold, underline, 14 font. Okay. Also notice we have 1 space here and 1 space right there. Okay, so everything's going to be even. You know, this is something to me that matters a lot in terms of the overall viewing pleasure, if you will. Okay, so under our employment history, there's usually 4 pieces of information that absolutely positively must be included. All right, so we're going to run through that. And again, how you display this information is up to you. We'll go through maybe a couple different examples, or you can use this example, play around with it, whatever you think. Okay. And again, this may depend on, is your title more important, or would they get more out of company recognition? So for this example, we're just going to go ahead and put the company name. All right. I'm going to put the city and state. Okay. Over on this side, I'm going to move this over here. I'm going to put the dates, from dates to dates. Okay. I generally like to spell it out, you know, using month and year, say February 2010 to January of 2015, you know, having spelled out obviously January 2015. It's up to you how you'd like to put it. I generally don't like to have just 215. I think it looks too informal, but you know, again, up to you. Now, again, here's something that we're talking about: setting lines, setting edges, and everything. I'm going to push these all the way over till they fall off the little cliff here, and then bring it right back. Okay, so all of my dates, the corresponding dates, boom, are all going to be lined up here, even for my education. Okay. So we got 3 pieces of information. Last one we're going to have is the job title. Okay. So I don't mind, you know, these ones are actually looking all right. I'm actually going to make the job title italicized and size 11 font. So I'm not going to put as much emphasis on this. Okay. Okay, so after that, obviously, what's the next step? We have to start describing our accomplishments, saying what we did at a particular job. Again, try and remember, I am going to be going over this information at a later date, how we can describe things better. This is much more about the formatting, a little bit quicker. So again, we're going to use bullet points here, so I'm just going to type out a sample sentence here. So let's say you got a couple nice things to say about yourself, right? We're going to keep it to 3 per job, and you'll kind of see again how the layout works here. Okay, so we got these three. I'm going to highlight these. Again, go and grab some bullet points. It grabs the same type of bullet point there for me. Okay. So that's one listing underneath. Hit the double return. One listing under my employment history. I'm going to go ahead and grab this a couple more times here. All right. Let's say this job from way back when you just got out of high school, you only got two nice things to say about yourself. Okay. So let's go ahead and take a few steps back and see how we're kind of coming through here. Okay. Now again, hopefully, in fact, just for our purposes here, it's kind of throwing me off here because you're going to have some, obviously, hopefully some very nice things to say about yourself and your time working at the company. Okay. I know this is throwing it off a little bit here, so just bear with me for a moment. It's bugging me a little bit. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and grab all these back, and I'm just going to use this as my example here. So like I said, hopefully you got a few nice things to say about yourself. Really fill it out. Start making it kind of boxy there. And again, this is, you know, it's not all going to look the same. We'll just kind of make it. I know I'm messing around with it too much now, but you kind of get the idea. Okay. All right, so we have two employment listings. Obviously, you can work on that. And even as I'm looking at it now, I can kind of see, you know, depending on what companies I've worked for, I may want to point these out a little bit more. So, you know, whether that means, you know, pushing that down a notch there. And again, I may need that return there for some extra space down here, depending on my education, all that good stuff. So I'm going to go ahead and leave it for the time being. Okay. And again, I'm going to move on now for the education. So again, this is taking that size 11 font from before. Okay, these are all size 11. And you know what, actually, I want to change these to size 12 while we're at it, because I want to make sure that's highlighted. And I only use the size 11 just for the particular job title. Okay. And again, education, we want to bring that up to what our other headings are at, right? So 14, bold, and underlined. All right, we got our one space there. Now the same thing that we have with the companies and the under our employment history, it's also going to be under the education as well. So we're going to have our school name. Oh, and remember, we got to get rid of that formatting. So let's change it back. Let's go to 12. Whoops. I want to go down, not up. Okay. Also the city and state. Okay. Now, depending on where you are at with your schooling, let's say that you've actually graduated, okay, we want to have the graduation date. All right, and just like the others, we're going to have it all the way over. Okay. Now, let's say that you are still in school, haven't finished yet, whatever reason, all right? If you are, keep it up, keep up the good work. Still in school, we're going to use that same formatting, dates. Okay, and again, we're going to line these up. We want to make sure that they are all nice and lined up and tight there. Okay. Now, instead of a job title, we want to have the listing of why are you going to school, or more specifically, what are you going to school for? So this is going to be, right, a certificate. If it's high school, it's your diploma or GED or degree. Almost forgot. Okay. And again, I'm going to go ahead, pop that down to 11, italicize it. Okay. All right. Now, getting down to the bottom here, and again, we're not done yet. We're going to go back up through this, okay, depending on our space. Let's actually, just for the sake of argument, let's say you got two school information here, or two schools of information. Okay. Okay. Now you can leave it blank down here at the bottom. I like to put references are available upon request. Okay. Generally, you don't like to include the actual names and the phone numbers. Again, you have a name and a phone number just out there, you know, kind of flailing around on somebody's piece of paper. So you don't really know, you don't have control of it anymore. And most times you're going to be filling out applications, either online or in person, that they ask for that information anyway. I know it's frustrating. don't have to put it on your resume. To be honest, you don't even really need to put that they're available upon request, because they're going to ask for it, they're going to demand it, or they're going to need it, I should say, and got to put it on there. Okay, so I'm going to go back up here. Let's go ahead and actually get a little bit closer here to our. So as you can kind of see, we're really filling out the page here. Not too shabby. All right, and you know what? To be honest, it's looking pretty bare up at the top, and we have a lot of room here to work with. Now you may have more than 2 jobs, right? So let's go ahead and add that in just for the sake of our formatting here. Okay. Actually, you know what? Let's pop back out real quick just to see what it looks like. Okay, so we're already down. Okay. So this is actually a good example. Let's say you run into this problem. You want to keep every single detail on each of those jobs, right? And now you dropped into the second page. That second school information that you have is really important. You want to put references available upon request in italics at the bottom of your page. What are you going to do now? Okay, so let's go back up here to page layout, where our margins right now are 1 inch, right? Boom. Well, we can do this to narrow it. Oh, we had a little boom moment without the boom. Okay, make sure I've highlighted everything first. Okay. Now I can go in, change the margins. Again, as you can see, everything kind of expanded out. Now when I do this, it doesn't recognize these, so I gotta expand those out. Okay. So just keep that in mind. Okay. I'm actually gonna take this back, keep my 1 inch margins here. And I'm just going to go ahead and take out the second schooling here. Generally, you don't have to include, say, like your high school schooling if you've actually earned a degree or a certificate higher than that. You know, if they ask for it, they ask for it. You know, but it's something that you can provide at a later time. All right. So let's get back to one page here. We kind of saw the overall layout here. I think it looks all right. It's coming together. Again, this is just going to be your bare bones, what you're working off of here. Okay. So a few things to me. It is taking shape, but there's really nothing that's bringing me down. I think I want to, since I have some of the room, have some more call-outs or make it more differentiated between different parts of the resume. So the first thing that I want to do is I want to see how much I can really push this. Go check my bottom here. Okay, so maybe I can play around with the line down there. And again, a lot of this stuff is going to depend on how much information that you even have in the resume. Okay, so you may have to go back to 24 or whatever it may be. Oops, that was way too big. Okay, so I'm gonna stick. Let's try 40. Okay, that really sticks out to me. I like that a lot. I like that. We'll find some way to make this work. I happen to like a hard bracket here, or whatever you want to give that a call. So I'm going to go ahead and put it in between each of them. It's just shift and the button next to backspace. I apologize, I don't know the technical term for here. But I'm actually going to put some multiple spaces in here. So I almost create a bar along here that differentiates my name for the rest of my resume. So I got 2 spaces in each. I'm going to go 3, 4, whoops, 5. I'll just try that. Actually, you know what? I think that's too much. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Oh. Okay. I think it's actually too much. I'm going to keep it at 2. I think it gives it enough space to breathe, but while still providing some separation there. Okay, is this a 1 or 2? Okay, 1, 2. Okay. I also want to make sure, like, just in case this gets printed out or anything like that, it takes away too much for it being blue and being underlined. So I'm going to go ahead and make sure that's not underlined. I'm going to change the font to the automatic. So it flows more with it. It looks more professional, like it all goes together. Okay. Again, this area right here is all going to depend on what types of skills you have. But generally, this skill section is going to be 2 to 3 word phrases that, again, determine those soft and those technical skills. Okay. with these three jobs here, and I know part of it is they're all being the same, how they kind of blend in here together, but I think we may even be able to maybe bring these down a notch in importance, make them italicized. So it still provides an anchor on this side, but it doesn't take away from the actual content here. Again, we're trying to take emphasis away from things that are drawing our eyes in that we don't necessarily care about or want them to see. For example, let's say you had a job, you worked there for less than a year, right? And they're concerned about that kind of stuff, right? Making the dates a little bit less important. Focus on who did I work for? What did I do there, right? What skills did I gain there? Who cares how long I worked there? Okay, and then we want to make sure, come down to the education, even if we're working up here, make sure everything is consistent. So this is going to go to 11 and italicized, okay? All right. So this being 14 and bolded, if this is 12 here, we can still kind of bold it, and I'm going to go ahead and do the same with the company names. And again, I'm just kind of playing around with it now because I can go ahead and change these and kind of take a step back. Okay, what does that look like? I kind of like that, how it's taken away, and creating almost little mini headers of, okay, here's where I worked, here's where I worked, here's where I worked. Again, making it so that it's not just one big box, it's differentiated. It's like cutting up somebody's meal for them so that they can easily digest it. Think of it that way, all right? Giving them your experience, your knowledge in easy easy size bites, all right? Bite-sized resume. Okay. Okay. So we actually had a couple spaces there, and I still want to leave that one space just like we've been doing the rest of the time. Okay. Let's get rid of that second page. Okay. And again, filled in with the proper information, I think that that's a resume anyone could be proud of to turn in. All right. So I am going to be having this particular resume for download, and I hope you enjoyed it. And again, watch out for some of my future videos. We're going to be talking about the content of a resume, things how you can describe the jobs that you're doing, what skills matter, what's important. So I hope you enjoyed this. Have a great rest of your day.